Recognize the gentle lady from West Virginia.
Thank you, Chairman Smith and Ranking Member Neal, and thank you, Secretary Yellen. I hope you take that cough drop. It's from me.
Thank you. Thank you very
In your
much.
fiscal year 2022 revenue proposals, you recommended that Congress lower the 1099K threshold from the time-tested standard of $20,000 to just $600 with no transaction minimum in order to, and I quote, close the tax gap. Congressional Democrats heeded your request and included the provision without any debate or consideration. President Biden signed it into law, and he touts the accomplishments of that bill to this day. In December of last year, your IRS delayed the implementation of the provision that you recommended for a full year. The IRS cited the difficulty in administering the program as just one reason for this delay. Your IRS had a full year to prepare and to send taxpayers a bill that they likely didn't owe, and you could not handle the burden. If this policy was too difficult for the IRS to get right after a year of work with your 87,000 new agents, not all of which are even back in the office yet, how do you expect an individual, say he's selling his couch or drum set or old furniture, to handle the cost and the compliance burden?
Well, this was enacted into law in the American Rescue Plan, as you pointed out, and the IRS began to implement it as required, and heard a number of concerns by individuals and organizations that this was confusing.
Oh, absolutely. I hate to interrupt you, but it is a nightmare for people that pass money back and forth. You know, one pays the rent, one does such and such, and they Venmo back and forth. I've spent the better part of 2 years trying to fix the mess that the Democrats created with this provision, and I want to thank every one of my Republican colleagues for co-sponsoring my bill, H.R. 190, and I certainly hope that my Democrat colleagues will do the same thing to protect all of our constituents from an undue burden on just a bad policy. Secretary Yellen, in May of 2021, just after the Biden administration pushed through the $1.9 trillion spending bill on a partisan vote, you claimed that 5% inflation at the time would be transitory, meaning temporary and brief. And I'm sure that the Biden administration based decisions on your analysis. But a year later, in June 2022, inflation then hit a 40-year high of 9.1%. A few weeks ago, this committee held its first hearing in my home state, and all of our witnesses said that their number one hardship is dealing now in 2023 is still inflation, the direct result of the failed economic policies of the Biden administration. Obviously, inflation is not transitory. You were wrong, and the people that are suffering as a result would really like to know if you might apologize for saying that and being wrong and misleading them.
Well, inflation is the president's top priority to bring it down, and it is certainly too high. It has come down off its highs a year ago. Over the last year, we've made progress, and in part that reflects what I meant at the time was there were disturbances from the pandemic on supply chains that would eventually resolve. And due to the president's efforts and the passage of time, those supply chain disturbances have largely resolved.
Please.
Shipping costs have come down.
They have not.
Substantially. Inventories that had been depleted have largely been rebuilt.
I really
but
think
there
that
remain
the words
inflationary pressures
really should hear
that
is that
need
I'm
to be
sorry.
dealt with, and Russia's war on Ukraine has also exacerbated
back.
inflation.
The gentlelady
all over
from
the
Washington is recognized.